So welcome everybody to my second tutorial on TreeBark Productions. This is the first one with like an audio and like voice recording. So today we're going to focus on first person tutorials because a lot of you requested and want to know how I made my movie. That was all in first person. And so today we're going to focus on more the military aspect with like weapons, so like rifles, bolt action, semi-automatic and machine guns, and then we're also going to do like grenades and like bayonets and whatnot. So there are going to be chapters so you can scroll back and forth easily, and we will do some basics like walking around and setting up the set. So let's start off. So we're going to start off with the walking part, and when you do the walking in like a first person, you're gonna like move it forward like slowly or quickly depending on how the character is moving. When I was doing the walking, I lowered their arms so you couldn't see that, otherwise it would be extremely complex in moving like their arms forward and keeping it all like aligned. Also, another thing that you want to do is when they're walking to like elevate the head up and down or side to side, just because like when you're walking you're not just like zooming in, so there's like a little like bounce, so to speak. So you can do this like depending on how you want to. And then also for like head turning, what you want to do for that is be careful in how you do it, because you want like your recording device, in this case my iPad, to pivot around the camera so it looks like they're turning their head. Otherwise, if you just do it like from the middle of the device, it's going to look like kind of like they're moving in like this arc angle. So that's probably not what you want to do for head turning. So the final like basic thing that we have to cover is with head movements like up and down, so nodding and so. So when recording the minifigure's head going up and down, depending on what type of setup you have that's like controlling and holding on to your camera, it's gonna be different. But for what I have for my iPad, it's basically just like a little box with a cutout that I like slide the box, my iPad, into. So for me, I just put like some Lego bricks or Cobi bricks beneath it, like on either end, so it kind of like angles and like not levitates, but like angles it in like whatever direction, whether it's up or down. And then I also use like a lot of sticky tack to hold it in place so it doesn't fall over or anything. So when you set up your display, your set for like recording, depending on the height of your camera, you're gonna have like either one or two or something in between of like Lego or Cobi bricks to support like your minifigure's arms. So you're gonna move that until you can't see anymore, so it's all hidden. And then you're gonna remove your arms from the minifigure, and you're gonna put those onto the blocks. And if you can see here, and I don't really know how this is all gonna line up, but I'll do my best to edit this. So if you look here, you can see how I had to move my camera backwards, and I'll explain that in a moment. So when I move my camera backwards, you can see the Lego brick or a Cobi brick, I don't remember which, that I used to support the minifigure's arms on. So I'll explain why I moved it backwards. So I moved it backwards because depending on how much your device can zoom, like focus in and out, if it can't focus in enough, your minifigure's arms will look blurry. So you're gonna have to move it backwards, but then zoom in, so that way the arms are clear, so to speak. So I did that, so it's now hidden. And then also I think that for this scene, it was too high, so I had to remove one brick, so it wouldn't be shown anymore. So that's just like another one of the things. So you can see after that I had to zoom in, so it'd look clear. So then I did this for the second part, the second arm, brought it up, and I used a nice amount of like the blue sticky tack that you all know of in my movies to help keep the arm like stable. So in this next scene, you can see like the whole setup as I zoomed out, so you can see what it all looks like, and this is just for one arm, but it would be the same for on the other side. So you see all the blue sticky tack, I had to remove that, and then you see beneath it, I have the brick. And then like depending on what you need, you can add like on either like a little bit like here or a whole lot that you just saw. But just make sure your audience does not see it, otherwise it gives it away. So now we're gonna start off with bolt action rifles. So like depending on the movie, your character might like grab it from somebody, like in my main stop motion movie with the army range, or they might just like pick it off the ground or however, but it doesn't really matter. So once you pick it up, you're gonna hold it with like both hands in like a realistic manner, and then you're gonna slowly like move it around in small increments, and try to keep it steady so it doesn't look choppy. So as you bring it around, depending on if you want them to be like aiming down the barrel or so, or if you want it more like the side view that we typically see in like a first person like shooter or so, that's how you're gonna want to do it. So in doing this, try to like bring the butt or the rear of the gun out of range so it looks like it's in your shoulder. That way you don't see it, so it looks more realistic and convincing. And when you end up shooting it, you have a few different options. You can either A, use practical effects, almost like real blocks that I did here. You could just use lights, like what I did in my main movie. You could use both of those, or you could use like digital effects, like with lights and whatnot. So that's all your choice. In this case, I just went with practical to give myself like experience with that. And make sure, like, depending on the gun and how you want it to look, like maybe the character's super strong, make sure to show the recoil, so like the gun goes up or backwards, or maybe like the camera shakes a little, and then you'll slowly bring it back down in like a convincing and realistic manner. And make sure to like watch these over, so like play it for yourself a couple of times as you're going through, just to make sure you like it, so you can go back and refilm it if you have to. So when cycling the bolt and like doing like the bolt action, depending on how you want to do it, in this case I decided to bring the gun back into that like side view. You can either use the arm that's on the barrel or the arm that's like holding the trigger and so. So you're gonna bring that off of the gun and move it again like slowly and steadily over to the bolt part of the gun, and you're gonna twist your hand so it looks like it's like opening it, and then you're gonna push the arm backwards so it's like sliding it open, and then you're gonna stop, and then you're gonna slide it forward again. And you can do this either really quickly so it looks like a lot of force is on it, or you could do it slowly. It's all your choice. And then once you bring it forward again, you're gonna turn that hand again so it looks like you're closing and locking it. And then again, because I brought it like in close, and I'm going to show you what it looks like when you just keep it like pointed down range, then you bring it back to aim again, and then you shoot again. And when you're like if you're doing practical effects, you can use like a mix of stuff. So in this case, I used one brick, then I swapped it out with just like a cone piece. Then I swapped it out with like a long like circle disc, and then there's also the cone on that on the other side, which I did later on, like when I did a 3-part, and then I would just bring it to just the cone. No, sorry, just the disc. But again, here I just did it 2 stages, but later on I'll show you that I did it in 3 stages. So in this case, I did it 5 times because the Mauser Car 98, the gun that I'm using currently, has a max capacity of 5, so I just did it for all 5. That way you can see how it looks. And when you're shooting it, obviously you want to have like some sort of an effect, something that's being reacted to the bullet impact. So whether that's like little like Lego or Cobi pieces that are like shooting up like for like the bullet hitting something and like the material like going everywhere, or something like a helmet that gets flecked off, or like a little like clay or something to represent like a bullet like wound. So you'll see that I first did it so it just like missed or so, then I did it so it hit the helmet, then in this case when it hits like the like German like dummy figurine here, you see that like the like sandbag head that I'm using ish kind of explodes. So that all falls down. And when it falls down, you don't want it to just stop immediately. You want it to kind of like ease in and ease out, which is something that a lot of stop motion people talk about, and you can look that up elsewhere. But I'll just briefly mention that here. So you can see here, after the head explodes, I do the animation with the barrel still pointing down range. And this time I have the trigger hand that's gonna cycle the bolt. And since there's no like grip on this gun for the barrel hand, I use some like blue sticky tack to like hold it on the hand and keep it steady. So again, we have the hand rotating, we have the barrel going backwards, then we have the barrel going forwards, and again, or the bolt going back and forth, and then we have the hand closing the bolt. So you can see briefly after, there's the blue sticky tack, and if this was like a main movie, I would probably mask it and like remove it so it's hidden, but for the sake of the tutorial, this way you can easily see like what I mean by it and how it looks. And when shooting it, and you can see here, this time I have a big recoil, and you can see on how I did it 3 parts, so I had the cone, then I had the disc and the cone, and then just the disc. So when shooting it, again, you can adjust the recoil, so this time it's like a huge like blowback. And you can see on how on the minifigure, the like target guy, the clay is reacting to it, so like the bullet's like hitting it. So now we switch over to the machine gun. So I just like lowered and picked up the different stuff. So for this machine gun, the Browning 1919, it has a machine gun belt. So that's what all these like little like bullet strips here are. Or you could use it like with a box that you just stick onto it. But for this example, I like the belt idea because you can show it going like in one side and out the other side. So in doing the belt, you're going to want, and like a machine gun in general, you want to make sure the like the muzzle flash, the practical effects and digital effects is continuous for as long as you're shooting it. So I just like rotate it between the disc and the cone. And also you want to show that the gun is shaking from the recoil. And also the hand, if you have your hand on the belt, it's like moving to like feed it and keep it steady. So that's like what I did here. Then like the arm kind of, like the sand arm exploded, and it all just like fell to the ground. And when I did that, I swapped like the actual arm out with clay. Like I didn't do any like physical and like permanent changes to the minifigures. Some people do like drill holes into the minifigures to show like the like bullet wounds, but I don't do that as I don't want to cause any like permanent damage at the moment. So for reloading, like depending on how you want to do it and depending on how advanced you are, you could like move the camera down and around like to show it like picking up and like struggling with like the belt or whatnot. But for this, I just kept it simple and I lowered the arm. So it grabs a new belt, it picks it up, and he puts it back into the gun, and then pulls the hand backwards, so this time he has both hands supporting the gun itself. So then he shoots again, and this time I added some camera shaking, so you could kind of see how that looks, and depending on like how much shaking, like where it's shaking, like in what directions, you can all adjust and like play with that. And you can see on how on the other side, you see like the belt like shooting out after it gets shot. So you can also see that like the whole like body explodes and falls apart. And then I finish that, so I lower the machine gun to get out of sight, and I take it off its like stock that it's standing on. I remove that. So in this part, we're going to do semi-automatics. In this case, I have the M1 carbine, not like the Garand or so. So in this case, I could have like the minifigure's hand actually hold on to the barrel itself and not be underneath it, because it could actually fit. So again, for a semi-automatic, it's a mix between the bolt and the machine gun, as you're not like cycling anything and pulling anything back or so. But it's just you shoot it, and then depending on how quickly your minifigure will once again lower his arm like slowly and aim and then shoot, or it could just be like pop 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 with like the whole time with the arm going up and down, but not like a machine gun like rate of fire. And you can see for this scene, I decided to do like bullet holes in the clay. So for that, I used actually the barrel of the machine gun that you just saw in the previous chapter, and I just like poked that into the clay. And what I did is I did it in two stages. The first poke with like the bullet going into it, and then the second poke of like the bullet going out. So if you look really closely, and I'm gonna slow this down in this first part, you can see that it's first like dark inside, and then you see through it because the bullet went through it. And if you want to do it like in slow motion, you would like do it like in really small increments, or like it's all how you want to film it, whether it's slow motion, normal, or a sped up. So you can see he shoots, the gun reacts, it goes down. And also one thing that's really helpful is look up how the gun actually like reacts and acts online in videos, or if you get the chance to shoot it yourself, just so that way it has a more realistic action and it's more convincing. So you can see that when I shoot it for the second time, a bit of like the legs and the lower half turned into clay, and then the third time the whole thing becomes clay. That way I can like do more, I can like play with it more. So you can see here it's the first stage, the bullet goes in and it's dark inside, and sorry about my voice. Then it's clear and you can see through it as the bullet leaves it and goes on. Then you see over here, it hits it like on the side, so you can see like the clay getting like kicked up and like pulled with it, and then it's just a big hole, like half hole, like crescent moon shape. Then for the third shot, or yeah, the fourth shot in this case, so the clay kind of explodes and like shoots up, and it kind of like peels apart. So you can see on how like with clay you can get really creative in how you want it to twist and turn and go like in and out. Something that like with Lego or Cobi bricks, you can't really like mold them like during it. So in this scene, again, the bullet goes in and out. And then what I also did was I made sure to make the other hole, like, be clear so you can see through that. But it doesn't, you can notice it looks kind of weird because it seems like two different spots are reacting at the same time. So depending on the movie, either that doesn't look realistic. Or it could be like, say the bullet splits apart in mid-air, or it's like a special gun, or it's like a bump fire, or like two people shooting at the same time and you don't realize it. So again, the bullet goes in and then goes out, and depending on like how you create it, it'll either look super clean like in this middle shot, like with just a circle, or it'll look kind of messy with like bulges like on the sides, or like it's like peeled around, or it's like a little like crumpled as if they crushes it. It all depends on what effects and how you want it to look. Because remember, you're in total control in this movie. And for all of my movies, I shoot it all on my own. It's all me doing it with my iPad, my MacBook as my editing computer. But it's all me. Like, I don't have like a team or anything. So in this fifth shot, I believe, you see on how the bullet goes in the left side, out of it, and then it hits the helmet, which then goes like spinning. And you want to make sure that everything that's getting hit and so reacts appropriately. So in this case, rather than it just going in and out of the helmet, I showed it kind of like hitting the helmet so it like spins and rotates. Then you see in the sixth shot, it once again explodes. So that side like gets like shot out. And then the seventh shot, it causes it to weaken to such an extent that like the whole like mountain of clay now starts to like slide and like crumble down. And when doing this, you want it to look realistic, so you're gonna like show like a little bit starting off, then you speed up, so again ease in and ease out. And you want it to kind of like, depending on where it is and how you want it to look, you probably would standardly show it like sliding down like everywhere, so like on an even thing. And not just sliding, but like the thing like gets like pushed down. And again, try this out multiple times to see how it looks, get experience, and look it over with yourself and maybe like a friend or a family member, just to see like what they're like, what they see it as. So you can see it as I continue to shoot it, as it continues to slide down, that I use just like my hand to like slide it down with. You see that the bullet hole emerges, but then it gets covered up by it. And then also, what I should have done here as well is show that side where it gets covered up also to like get pushed down as it all like falls into the hole, not just like covers it up. And again, when I was talking about recoil and like looking up videos, when I looked up videos of people shooting this gun in particular, the recoil didn't seem very significant. In fact, I saw one like soldier from like World War II like running and like just using like one hand to hold this, and it was like a small gun with not that much recoil, so that's why it's not as major as the other guns. So again, more shooting, more bullets, more sliding, and then slowly comes to a stop. And now we're going to move on to handguns. So in this case, I have a revolver instead of like a semi-auto. So with this, you want to show it more like so the arm like goes like flying like up and down, because like with a handgun, and again you can take creative liberties, but in my case I decided to do that so it looked like it's like a powerful gun, like a big like heavy old gun. So you can see here I have it focused in on the revolver, so like the clay and like the target is all blurry, but you can still see like the bullet holes emerging and everything. So I do that a few times. And then it hits the helmet. So again, the helmet gets like pushed backwards and so. Then it continues to hit it. And now with this second shot, it weakens the clay that was thrown onto it from like the old like German minifigure. So the clay starts to slide off. And then in order for me to now be able to like turn the helmet into like its own like crumbly to like show the helmet falling apart, I convert the helmet into like a clay form of it. So I swap that out, and you can see it doesn't look all too realistic, as I don't have much experience like using clay to like recreate things exactly, but I have like a generalish color of it and so. But you can see that now it's like that. I can show like bullet holes and stuff in it. So you see on how this third shot now is like on the top. So again, it's like a little like crescent, like half moon shape, as opposed to a full hole and circle. So you can see that the minifigure is now focusing entirely on that. And you see on how like when I was talking about it's either like aiming down the barrel, like down the sights for like your angle, or you want this more like side view. That's what I have right now, like the side like angle view, and that's what I've been doing the entire film. But I'll probably pull in some clips from the original, and you can see it like the guy aiming down the sights of his Tommy gun as he shoots it. And again, like I focused now onto the target, so the gun itself is now blurry. And when I do this, I set all the settings to manual, as opposed to auto, so I myself like focus in and out steadily. As with the auto, it doesn't look as good, and otherwise the computer will like constantly be adjusting it, or like the color balance and stuff is not what I want it to look like. And one trick that I learned during my D-Day filming, to make it look clearer, is to turn down your ISO all the way, that way it's not grainy, but then to get it to look brighter, you have to turn up your shutter. And with stop motion, as you're using still images, it looks fine, it looks clean. But if you were to do this like in real life, you wouldn't want to do that. Otherwise, like a moving image would look way too blurry, which you actually can notice. And I'll again pull in some clips from my original. In the original, when it was like the cannon shot, as I was moving like the soldier like back and forth, like he's turning his head, you can actually see that some stuff in like a still looks blurry because I was turning the camera as I was taking the photo. So you can see what I mean by like the slow shutter rate causes that blurry effect if it's on a moving image. So now we're going to switch to grenades. So when doing grenades, you have two options. You can either like do an overhead throw or an underhand throw, like more toss. So in this case, I have the overhead throw. So I slowly brought the grenade up so the audience can see that. And then once it's behind the head, I quickly I speed it up as it's moving forward. So I do one shot, like a slight movement, a second shot of a larger movement, and a third shot like a huge movement. And then when it's in the air, and as it's actually leaving the hand, I use some blue sticky tack to give it more like an elevated effect. And again, if this was a finalized movie, I would remove the blue sticky tack so you wouldn't see that. And then when it's in the air, this is actually held, the grenade, it's actually standing there. It's not like cropped in, but it's held up by like a big long gray stick that I stuck it to, again using blue sticky tack, the most useful thing in movie making. So I stuck it to that, held it there, and then once I took the photo, I proceeded to mask out and erase the stick, so it now looks like it's floating in midair, which is also why you can see that when it's on the ground, it looks more real than when it's in the air, because you can kind of see the borders don't look so natural. It looks kind of like it's cropped in, but it's not. Then again, you can see here I wasn't able to focus it in or out quick enough, so it still looks a bit blurry, like the grenade itself and on the target, but then I quickly focused it out. And when doing first person, as it's more like their eyes you're looking through, when you look at something close and then look at something far away, your eyes don't take a while to translate and slowly focus in or out. They do that much quicker. So take that into account when you're focusing in and out. You want it to be more of a quicker movement as opposed to maybe a slow, steady focusing in and out that you might just do with like a standard movie. So in this scene, I decided to have like it like sink into the helmet, so it hits the helmet, then it slowly like sinks into it. Like again, representing that the helmet is now weaker as there's all the holes in it. Then it explodes, so the grenade first disappears as it all like quickly like heats up. And again, for this shot, I didn't use any like pillow stuffing or just stuffing in general to create like a smoke effect. I just want to focus on the raw helmet exploding, like twisting and all shooting apart. So again, when doing explosions, you have a few different options. Practical effects, like with stuffing and the actual pieces. You could use lighting and combine the two so it flashes. Or you could again do special effects, which I've done all three, like a mix of them throughout my movies. So it explodes, it all like shoots apart, and it's a lot easier doing like sideways, because when it's shooting up in midair, you have to use all these like different tools and things to hold it up in midair. So I decided I would focus on it like going sideways. So as it goes sideways, you can see it's now kind of like more like a bendable, very like malleable state. So it like shoots and like hits like the concrete floor that it is on, and it like sinks in and like stops in there. So while it might look like it's disappeared, it's still there if you look at it. So now we're gonna focus on the underhand throw, and the reason why like these are different shots was because as I filmed it, and we'll see the final result at the end. So as I was filming it, I decided that I would go through all the different stages, like in not really in like the best order. So now in this scene, you see that the minifigure's very close to it, and there's all of these like different stuff that's in like the clay, which I'll show you later after this. So with an underhand throw, it's a much more like slower, like he brings it out so you see it, brings it back to kind of like a wind up. Then he throws it like, again, like slowly, like not with as much like force and energy as with an overhead throw, so like the toss is weaker and it doesn't go as far. And again, for this effect, as I'm showing that it's now like a soft like goo the minifigure has been turned into, it sinks into it. For other stuff, you might want to like bounce off to show it's like a hard surface, like say a wall. When you throw it, and once it hits the target, you can either do it so it's impacts, so it's like an impact grenade, so it immediately explodes upon contact with something, or you could do it with like a fuse, so it takes some time for it to explode and so. Okay, so now for cannons, when you do the cannon scenes, depending on how your guy is going to pick up and receive the cannon shell, whether or not he's the one who picks it up and puts it in, or somebody hands it to him and then he simply loads it, it all affects how you do it. But I'm going to tell you how you do it as if there is somebody who's handing him the shell. So starting out, we have the officer who picks it out of the box, and then when he hands it to you, well, your minifigure will lift his arms up like about a reasonable height, so the two like arms match the level of his arms, and then you grab it. And what's important for this is that you use, once again, a lot of sticky tack, so it all like holds on and it sticks so it doesn't fall off. And then you want to have it so that the arms are like evenly spaced across the shell. So once you get it, you're going to lower it, and then the arm that is closer to the cannon is going to kind of move towards the front of the shell to help like guide it and like slide it in, and then the hand towards the back is going to help push it in, which will push it in. And that is if the like the tip of the shell is pointing the same direction as the cannon. If it is the opposite direction, as in this scene, when you pick it up, like when you receive it, you're gonna turn it around as you receive it. which will make it a lot easier. Otherwise, you're gonna have to really like fiddle with it in the minifigure's arms. And then you basically just do the same thing. You turn around, you have the hand closer to the cannon, guide it, and the hand further away. Just like push it in. And like obviously for this you can change how much force you're using, how quickly it happens, and so and that's about it. So now we're gonna move into things like bayonets, knives, and like pickaxes and so. So with the bayonet, you're gonna bring up your gun, and in this case, the Cobi Mauser has like a stock, like a holding spot that I can attach the knife bayonet to. So I don't have to use like any blue sticky tack or anything to hold it onto it, and it looks much more realistic. So again, you're gonna bring it into your standard like gun shooting position. But since you're doing the bayonet, you're gonna like bring it kind of like backwards, and then you're gonna throw it forward in a much quicker manner, so it like stabs into it. And like once it actually hits the spot, like the target, whatever it is, you're gonna want to make sure that the gun slows down, so like you can see like the resistance of the object. So it slows down, it stops, and then you pull it out. But in this case, like when I actually was pulling it out, the gun, the bayonet was actually like kind of stuck in the clay, so it just slid off of the gun. So again, depending on the effect, if you want it to be like more like a stab and it stays in there, or you want it to come out, you can either keep it in there, or I could have just pulled it out and like held it on to the barrel. And then I slowly like move the barrel off screen. So now you just see the bayonet there. And then he pulls up a knife, and you see that the knife is different from the bayonet. So again, he twists it into more like a stabbing position, or like he could do like a cutting or whatnot. Again, depending on how you want to film it, whatever your style is, whatever you're trying to get out of it. So again, he throws it forward, he kind of like lets go in this case, or you could have him like hold it all the way through. And then you see how the knife like quickly slows down as it hits it, and it like sticks there to show again it's like a gooey substance now. And again, if I was doing this as like a movie, like in a combat thing, like JD Brick Productions, like Verdun, I would have it like go in, and then like he holds it and like pulls it out. But in this case, I just wanted like one shot, so you see it. So it goes, so it stabs the clay, then he lets go and just keeps it there. And then we move on to the pickaxe. So when doing like rifles or pickaxes, and you're showing it like with multiple hands holding on to it, you want to make sure that the hands, like in the arms, like they're pointing a realistic way. So you can see that in this first shot, they're both pointing to the right side, which is not realistic, because if you were to hold on to like a baseball bat, you have one arm, your right arm, sticking out to the right, and then your left arm sticks out to the left. So you see in this shot, it looks extremely weird and not realistic or convincing. So I decided to quickly fix that. And again, if this was an actual movie, I would most likely redo this shot, but this way you can see like how, like what I mean about it and how it looks awkward. So you see now here, one is sticking to the right and one sticking to the left, and it looks much more realistic and much more convincing. So again, for the pickaxe, now what I decided to do is to have like multiple hits, as opposed to just like a one-time hit. So then it digs and wobbles, and he decides he's just gonna let go of it. And so there you go, guys. So that's like the whole thing, and now we can actually watch how it looks in the finalized version. And again, when I say finalized, it just means normal speed. So I still have things like the block showing here. The block is still showing, and you can still see it. Again, just so you can see how it all looks like in the actual thing. But again, if this was like a real movie, I would blur that out and like erase it so you couldn't see that. So we can watch the finalized version. And there is like audio and sound effects and everything on this. So I'll just let you guys watch this and enjoy. And I'll talk to you once it's over. And then there was one other thing I want to go over quickly. So yeah, so again, since this is just a tutorial and the guy is not like in combat or so, and that was the same thing with my first time doing it, it's more like at a range, so he shoots it, places it down, picks up a new gun. But if this was an actual thing, you would have like a whole like set, so like say, like trees or something that he's hiding behind. So you would kind of have like the camera and like gun like peek out and look and then shoot and pull it back in. So again, like he's moving around and so like in a more nervous fashion because again he's taking fire. But for this, as it's just like an empty set, there's none of that. So he just picks it up, shoots, puts it down, he's done. As opposed to like running around and like more panicking and stuff. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I hope that you found it very informative and useful and that it explained everything that you wanted and needed to know. And if you have any more questions or comments, feel free to leave those in the comments section. I'll do my best to answer them. And potentially, I'll make more tutorial videos in the future if you guys request them. And if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe as it really helps the channel out. And not only for me, but also for the algorithm so it knows that this is a good and quality video. Thanks. So take care everybody. Enjoy. Bye.